Hello and welcome back to another weekly worm update. This week has been mostly maintaining all of the recently harvested bins. For the regular tote bins, I have just been slowly adding material to the bins. This week in the regular tote, I'm going to take a week off from adding material and just allow the worms to have a feeding of food that I know attracts them the most. Things like melons and squash and cucumbers seem to bring the worms over to the side of the bin with the food the fastest. So that's all I did this week in terms of managing the regular totes. I made sure both of them were fed up. I made sure that I put the bubble wrap on them and didn't do much to them. The second regular tote, again, is the one that I'm doing as a trash bin, and I put that in quotes because I am breaking up the material. I'm not just throwing large chunks of unbroken cardboard and things like that in there, but I am putting unshredded cardboard pieces in here versus my regular tote just to see how the regular tote bins react with that since they tend to run wetter in the summer. But not much updating for either bin this week. Moving over to the recently harvested VermiBag. Now this one I do have to pay quite a bit of attention to because the VermiBags run very dry at the beginning of a restart on when you put new bedding in. So I not only wet this at the beginning, then mixed everything in, but then I also did add moisture to this. I wouldn't normally add this much moisture to my regular totes because they retain a lot more moisture. VermiBag totes dry out so fast, so I made sure that I wet this down, even added squash, which has a high moisture content to it, before closing up the bin. And if you're wondering what the white powder that I use, that's my worm grit. My last video, I explained how I make my worm grit. You can check that out if you have questions, but worm grit is important to the worms for digestion. But once this one got his grit and the bubble wrap, it was all set up. Now, this is the bin that I am going to do what I'm saying is a hybrid bait process. And the only reason why I say that is normally when I bait my worms out, I take all the material out of the existing bag, throw it into one of my pizza dough trays, and then just bait the worms out there. Because I'm concerned with the loss of worms, because that's how I got into this position with this bin in the first place, I'm going to put the bait tray right inside of the Vermi bag itself. I'm going to take this slowly. I'm not going to rush this process because I want to make sure I get as many juvenile worms out of here because I know there should be a lot, even wisps as well. I want to make sure every possible worm that I can get out of this bin, I do so. So I intend to do this for at least 4 weeks, maybe even 6, just to make sure that I give the worms as much time as possible to move out of the existing bedding. It's not so much that this bedding is going to be used for compost anywhere else. It's just that there's so much in here that I have to take the worms out and restart this bin in order for me to even make this VermiBag Tote process worthwhile. I don't think I'm getting anywhere because the material is already so fine. So this begins the bait process or hybrid bait process for this bin, and we'll see how long I take to actually harvest this out and restart. And that brings me to my very last vermicomposting system, which is the VermiBag Mini. And again, I say it a lot. I love this bag because this bag holds so much material. I will be harvesting this bag next week, and I am anxious to see what the material looks like this time around because I definitely didn't add as much moisture to the bag as I did for the last cycle. and those castings were super muddy. I find that my most challenging castings come out of this bin because either they're too dry or too wet. I haven't found that sweet spot. But you can give this bag a lot of food, so I am giving this a lot of food to bring the level up, make sure the worms are truly out of the bottom, because when I harvest I don't want to encounter worms that have migrated down towards the bottom. Typically they don't because it does get compressed, but still want to encourage them to come to the top. And that completes the update for this week. If you have gotten this far with me in the video, thank you so much. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the content. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Till next week.